The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast.
All right. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. Today I have Michael. Is it Michael?
Michael? Mike?
Michael.
Which do you
Michael.
prefer?
Mike, it's quicker.
Make it Mike today then.
Right. Mike Welch, OBE.
You don't have to say that bit though. Mike's just Mike's fine.
Just Mike. All right. Okay.
Just Mike.
All right. Lord.
Yeah, okay.
Founder of Blackcircles and founder, president and CEO of TireBuyer. And you're in Miami at the moment, and I've already told you that I hate you because you're in Miami because it's sunny, and I'm in Edinburgh and it's definitely not sunny here. So I really want to talk about your journey on how you ended up in Miami, enjoying the sunshine, and where it all began. So where did it all begin, Mike?
Okay, so I was a tire installer, as they call it here in the US, or a tire fitter, back in Birkenhead in the mid 90s. It was kind of my weekend job. One of the challenges I had in school, I was dyslexic. I mean, it's quite cliche, so you know, you have to kind of bear with me on this stuff. But I am dyslexic. Dyscalculia, numbers was my issue, my bigger issue, and I really struggled in school. So, you know, we had kind of class. We had like 45 in a class. It was easy to go missing, which I regularly did. So my kind of early on, my drive was to kind of be involved in stuff because if you don't really count in school, at least back then, you tend not to get picked for stuff. So you don't really get the opportunity to do, it's the knock-on effect in, sports. I was pretty good at sports. I was, athletics and football, but, I never really got the privilege to do a lot of that stuff because I was usually serving at detention or sitting in the stock room, kind of catching up on the stuff I didn't do. So, but they didn't know back then that I was dyslexic and distracted as a kind. I wasn't a naughty boy. I just didn't kind of get my work done. So yes, So the driver for me was very much to try and get into work and kind of, and really kind of find somewhere that I mattered. So I took up jobs. Had a paper round in the morning, one in the evening. I worked weekends at the garage. Kind of just got busy and then started to earn a little bit of money. And that was really quite interesting because, cash in your pocket and, you could do stuff with that. So that was really my motivation quite early when I was kind of 13, 14, was I wanted to leave school and start earning some money. School didn't disagree with me. They were like, get them out as soon as we can. So
away you go, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not going to stand in your way. So when I was 16, with my GCSEs, which were a bit of a disappointment, expectedly, I left and started working full time at the garage, and I was a tire fitter, and that was great. So £50 a week, and then I was made redundant from that job after only a year,
Right.
which was devastating. Actually, much more devastating than my GCSE results, which was interesting. So I started to sell tires to my pals using the suppliers that were supplying the garage. So I kind of reached out to them and said, look, can you help me? Because I think there's a market here. What I kind of noticed was that we were selling products out the door at a kind of a standard markup. Nobody was really trying to compete with KwikFit, who were the big player, still are in the market. And I kind of thought, well, in this niche, this kind of high performance niche, and my friends had kind of kind of souped up old cars with
Boy
big
racers.
tires. Boy racers, yeah, petrol heads. But they didn't have the money to spend, fortunes. So I kind of thought, well, there might be a bit of a niche here. So I asked the supplier to kind of give me a line of credit, which they did with no, and again, my story, if you want to call it that, really comes down to opportunities that people have afforded me often because I've asked. There isn't really a science or a secret sauce. It's about, asking being persistent and asking the question and being in the right place at the right, or being in enough places and asking enough questions that you find the right place and the right time. So they gave me that opportunity, and then I started to sell tires, and I was at home. I was taking cash for tires and making a little bit of a margin, and my mum and dad kind of humoured me for to do that from the back of the house. But it started to build, so I was still looking for jobs. So I was going to the job centre, and because I was kind of thinking, is this ever going to kind of be anything? And there was a poster for the Prince's Trust. So they were saying that we will help to fund businesses to start, kind of, and it was very much targeted at people who were at the job centre, right? So you get the demographic, kind of young, kind of 16 to 18-year-olds they were targeting. So I thought, well, I'll give that a shot. There's no jobs, so I'll give that a shot. So I went to see them, and they said, look, here's a kind of a boilerplate, couple of pages, go and write a business plan, come back and we'll have a chat. So I went back and they gave me £500 for a computer. So I was like, well, this is great. So
good
I
start.
have a computer. Yeah. And they introduced me to a mentor, and they still do this today. And I'm heavily involved with the trust, and they're a fabulous organization, because they really do. It's kind of the brass tack stuff they help with. They're not looking for the big headlines. It's about kind of, they are in the right place to make sure that those who need it get the support. So I got a computer, and then there's a bit of software on there called Front Page, as part of Microsoft package at the time. And it was like a tutorial to build a website. So I built a website, and I put tire prices on there, and I put the suppliers' products on there. I was like, actually, this works, because I was wanting to take ads in magazines to get more customers than just my buddies, but I couldn't afford the ad space, so I took strip ads with the website address, and I could change the prices on the website, and really that's where it all started. So that was one of the first online tire retailers for high performance tires of its time. So not because I was trying to be innovative, because I couldn't afford, kind of big ads in magazines. And the Prince's Trust gave me a computer. So so it was just, two and two made six for me, really, and in terms of, what that created. And then that evolved, and, I was then approached by KwikFit, and KwikFit were looking to get into e-commerce, into the internet, and do something there, because we're talking now kind of late 90s. So, we were kind of just coming into the .com kind of bust. So we kind of
remember it well.
Boom, bust really quickly.
Yeah.
But there was still, the internet as a channel was still something that people were really interested in. So I went to see them, and they said, look, would you come and help us do this, and move to Edinburgh? So I went. I didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm making quite a lot of progress, and at least I thought I was. And then I went up and I met them, and they introduced me to a guy called Tom Farmer. So Tom Farmer, who's the founder of KwikFit, and that was like, that was my first real kind of inspiring kind of moment in my career, where I just felt like I could learn a lot off this guy. And he said to me, look, if you want to kind of be in this industry, this is your university. This is where you want to be. So go away, have a think about it. And they paid me some money for my little business. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was an exit of sorts. And I moved to Edinburgh, and then got in behind building out KwikFit.com. And it all happened really very, very quickly. And then Ford bought KwikFit quite quickly after. So next thing, we're in the US, in Detroit. And like literally a couple of years earlier, I was under a car in Birkenhead, fitting tires on on Nissan Almiras.
That must have been really weird. Did you have to pinch yourself a few times and, look in the mirror and go, hang on a minute, what's a lad from Birkenhead doing here? Or did that just not cross your mind?
Not really. It kind of felt like it felt like it was in pretty well intended. It was kind of,
Right.
it felt natural at the same time. I think it's an interesting point you make. I think if you don't know, ignorance is a really
Right.
interesting kind of state of mind, in as much as I wasn't intimidated by any of these folks or these environments because I never knew, I didn't know they existed, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I'm in Ford and lots of people in suits talking in acronyms with things that I didn't, and I'm asking kind of the daft, straightforward questions. And the sighs of relief around the room were obvious because
Right.
I think when you understand these environments, often you are intimidated to speak out, to ask what you might think's the daft question, or to put yourself in a position where you're the person saying, "I don't understand. Please
Mm.
explain, more." And that kind of corporate kind of vice that you can get trapped in of, I need to look smart. I don't know, look
Mm.
stupid. Is something that I've always, I've actually made a point of making sure I don't fall into that trap,
Right.
because I think it stops, it really stops and crushes innovation, because people aren't willing to think outside of what their direct report is telling them is the right way to do something.
Yeah.
They just follow the leader. So
Yeah.
so no, it didn't. I think ignorance was my kind of was helped me there, and I learned a lot very, very quickly, and probably saw the resources in front of me slightly differently to others, because there was a lot to offer for me to learn and develop, and money to spend. And I'd spent the last
Right.
couple of years just, using pocket money, and,
Yeah.
getting, my mum and dad bought me a fax machine for my 21st. It was stuff like that. I mean,
Right.
then now you're in Ford and Quick, you know, you need hardware. We just, might write it make an ask of the hardware department, and it'll be there in the morning. It was just, that was a bit mind blowing, that there's resource available. And again, to think about what we could do with that, and to have a more of a frugal mentality towards how we go and deploy that resource, is something that I've always tried to kind of, a position I've always tried to assume and to take, because again, in a corporate environment, it's easy to waste.
Really easy. I'm guessing you had some kind of vision, though. Do you how do you kind of, when they said, come on board, we want to do more online, more e-commerce, they're obviously tapping into what you'd already established, but you must have talked to them about what you thought the possibilities were and what your vision was, because they wouldn't just buy your business, and they would have kicked you out basically if they didn't think there was something in you. So what was going on in your head about where you thought you could take this using their resources?
Yeah, I think there's a we're at the very much the beginning of internet retail, and in our
Mm.
industry, very much, kind of steps before the beginning. It was very, very embryonic, and actually the business model of getting customers into stores and then diagnosing the problem and then upselling to them, and then that created a real, negative reputation for
Mm.
these sorts of garages. People were
Yeah, it did.
intimidated because of the way they made their money, and the way they were kind of stitched together. Um, so I guess, what's the old saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I mean, I
It's
kind of
true.
knew a bit, and I was kind of, it seemed obvious to me. I've been doing it a couple of years. Selling tires online was a channel. That's something that, in a short period, I felt like I understood at least more than somebody who hadn't had 2 years trying to kind of get underneath it. But there was so much still to learn, and I think it was as much about somebody who got started and was willing and enthusiastic, as much as it was somebody who had, you know, 10, 15, 20 years of kind of knowledge and IP behind them. The reality is that in our industry, it's an old industry, still is today. It's it's quite can be quite antiquated in its ways and its approaches. So kind of fresh thinking and enthusiasm and somebody who's willing to kind of get out there and do it was probably what got me, in the door and then into the, and then, so it's much about chemistry and, and people and relationships. Again, the kind of my earlier point, that's something that comes back through in probably most of my kind of the different iterations of what I've done and what, and how we've done okay is it's usually been based on good relationships and being able to leverage the benefit of them.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Did you know at TriCrest, we've built a kick-ass culture, coach and consultant program. So if you're a business coach or consultant and you're looking for something new, add to your toolbox, or even escape the 9 to 5, join us at our next event. Links in the information on the podcast. See you there. Yeah. And so when did you set up Blackcircles?
Yeah, so I was kind of we were building out KwikFit.com and then the international sites, and that was all going fine. And then Ford were very much entrenched in to KwikFit, and Tom left, and the senior team had gone because the business had been fully bought out. And for me, it felt like it felt like things had kind of slowed down, and I was in a bit of a hurry. For what, I'm not sure, but I was in a hurry, and I
impatience
felt like,
of youth.
Yeah, well, I mean, the energy I felt had gone, but also during the time that I'd kind of spent and been lucky enough to spend with some of the senior guys in the business, understanding what made the business so successful and what were its weaknesses, and I was able to relate some kind of, I guess, some differentiation to what could be achieved online versus the market leader that was KwikFit. And one of the big things that kept coming out was the independent sector, these independent garages, the mom and pops, as they call them over here, were so strong in their areas, in their regions, even though they didn't necessarily have the buying power. They were able to hold on to customers. They had an inherent high level of customer service. They just behaved differently, like street fighters. And I remember Tom saying, if it wasn't for those guys, we'd dominate. We'd have internationalized a long time ago. But it's like strongholds locally. And I remember thinking, if I could match, there's thousands, tens of thousands of these guys. If I could get these guys to partner with me and build a website like I built before, and perhaps they could install the tires for me, that would be really, really powerful. And I just couldn't get that out my head. And then a moment came. I think it was just one kind of cold, wet Wednesday morning in Edinburgh. I was heading down to McDonald's Road to the store there where we had an office, and I just thought, I need to give this another shot. I can't. This is moving nowhere. I need to get out there and give this a chance. And so I resigned that day. Had like a week's notice. Obviously wasn't valued that much. A week's notice. Not
a lot of notice.
No, it isn't. And I'm half a month's salary. And literally a couple of weeks to knock together a plan and take it to Scottish Enterprise. And they were great. They said, look, why don't you take an office down in Peebles, because that's where we can get you some support. So they gave me 3 months free.
Right.
And an account manager, and I started, built a website, wrote some basic website, phoned the same supplier that I'd called the first time round. They knew me by that time from my KwikFit experience. So I had a bit more credibility, a little bit. And then started putting the tires on the site, and off we went again. And at that point, Google had started. They bought the ad serving software. So Google AdWords had become a thing. It wasn't really
Yeah.
when I'd started out, but it was new, and
Mm.
so was SEO. Really, there was not really many dominant, prominent sites. So the first thing I did
No.
was started to build out a load of content, and Blackcircles became top ranked for tires above KwikFit. We held that
Right.
for 12 years. I mean, it was
Wow.
hard. It was well out because that was going to, for me, that was our high street. It was like, there was three things I needed to do. Number one was rank number one in the search engines. Number two, start to build a network as quickly as possible for install. And number three, get the supply locked in. So they were the things that I did, and then started to sell. So I was selling tires initially, mail order. I got a load of Yellow Pages books. They send you free Yellow Pages when you inquire about an ad, or at least they used to.
They did.
So I inquired about every book in the country. So they sent me literally sent me a pallet from DHL of all the books. So I went through, ripped out all the pages, typed in the fax numbers of all the garages, and sent it up like a broadcast fax with a sign-up form to be an installer on the Friday, and then by the Tuesday I had 300 installers signed, and I had a kind of it was kind of national coverage, but that started then to build, and so then I had installers on the website, I had supply on the website, and I think probably 4 months in, I started to sell the combined tires and install.
Okay.
And that was the tipping point, really. That was what started to, along with being top ranked on Google and taking the Google AdWords at a fairly low cost at that stage.
There's a few things in there, Mike, that I want to just pick up on, because we get all kinds of people listening to this podcast who are at the beginning, middle, and end of their entrepreneurial journeys. So one that I've noticed, you had real clarity on the three biggest priorities, and you set about systematically delivering on those priorities. There was no hesitation. There was no I wonder if. You just right. Well, we need to do this, this, and this, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. I think so many people fail to succeed because they procrastinate, they overthink, they over-strategize, they overcomplicate. Again, the way you think, do you just see stuff and go, right, it's this, this, and this, or where does that clarity come from, do you think?
Well, I think the most valuable thing that I did was I stuck into my industry. So I understood. I could have a conversation with a garage. I still can today. A person in a garage about how to break a bead on a tire and then install it. I mean, nothing's changed. Technology's moved on a little bit, but I could get in a store and I could install tires, and I know the environment because I've wrapped my knuckles with a wrench, in the middle of winter, and I've had the worst of it and had the best of it in terms of experiences in stores. And then to Tom Farmer's point, my university or my education very much was KwikFit. So I just tried to learn as much as I could, as quickly as I could. And I've never been one to feel like I know it all, because I don't. In fact, that's probably a weakness. Is I probably feel like I'm low on info when actually I'm probably in certain situations, and I'm probably okay. But there's no shortage of information that you can grab hold of, whether it be practical on the job or data points or or whatever. But that then informs your gut, and for me, the most sophisticated bit of technology that we've all got is our instinct and our gut, and that's probably the bit inadvertently initially, but then purposefully, kind of probably at the point I moved to KwikFit, when Tom's talking about you need to learn here. Every he's used to say, don't pass a stone and leave it unturned. Just metaphorically speaking, you've got to keep learning, and that was the kicker probably for me. and I've never changed that. So
Right.
that helps to be decisive, because I think if you understand, my advice to anybody in an industry who's in an industry trying to innovate and make change in an industry is spend as much time as you can kind of in market, in job, in industry. If that means taking a job, if I was doing this again now, I would probably take a job with a tire business, a retailer, or manufacturer, or to get grounded with the environment and with the market. It's very difficult to come from the outside in, and because it's the nuances that make that create the opportunities. It's the unprofessional side of our industry that created the opportunities for me, and whether it be pricing, the parallel grey market, the way the manufacturers, favor certain relationships over others. It was that stuff, understanding that stuff, that really made kind of the paths more obvious to me. So I guess being in market, understanding it, and that educates the instinct, which then enables you to be much more. It certainly enabled me to be much more decisive. And that's just repetition. What's it they say? Is it 10,000 hours?
Something
They say
like that.
on any kind of profession or whatever, in any, you become an expert. I think it's just constant learn, just rinse, repeat, and then it probably becomes more second nature. That being said, in the early days, where there isn't that depth of experience and obsession over the subject matter, probably to a pain point. So for me, I couldn't sleep because I was thinking. What if? I played all the scenarios, mapped everything. What if? And having where I'm making big decisions, always having a plan B. So always having an exit path, keeping the door just slightly ajar on the first iteration, on the first move. If it doesn't work, be able to exit, without having risked the ranch. So phase in, test, learn, and then go. Don't be all in necessarily, on a whim. But there's always an element of whim. There's an element of, but I've got a vision, I've got an instinct, and you've got to follow that. But always give yourself the ability to back out, but never don't go in.
Totally.
To your point, it's about, maybe there's a bit of, how many times have I had people say to me, that tire business that you launched, I had a similar idea, could have been me. So simple. I'm like, well, yeah, it's simple, but the
it's not.
but the execution across all the moving parts, and there's so many variables to manage, and it takes, usually the difference between those who do and those who don't are the ones who are willing to take the risk, are the ones who do.
We run an online learning business, and right back at the beginning it was like, we'll record all our stuff, put it online, and then everybody will buy it, and then of course nobody does, and then you realize there's more to it than that. So when people say you're not worried about people ripping off your online learning, I'm like, good luck to them. 4 years in the making, thousands of hours of video recording, content, blah, blah. There's always 1,000,001 moving parts that nobody sees from the outside. Definitely.
Yes.
All right.
Definitely.
So you got to the point, and it's did you always think you would build it to sell? Did it come to the point where you just didn't want to?
No, I didn't actually. I kind of built it. I built it to kind of, probably because I was so convinced of the opportunity, and I wanted. It's kind of like when I took the first job in the industry after school, and I was a bit like, I want to matter. I want to do something that kind of is, is smart. It feels smart. It feels like it counts. That mattered to me, because obviously I didn't feel like I did at the time. So it's kind of similar. I felt like there was an opportunity. I kind of assessed that, and felt like it was going to be something that was worth kind of going for, and that was as far as it went, really. I kind of took the steps, started to build it out, there was I guess the mitigation for me was always that at some point I could kind of use the experience I had and go and do something else, take a job
Yeah.
somewhere and be a bit more experienced. So there's always a plan B, but the but no, I didn't have a grand plan that I was going to sell it to anybody. It was more about kind of just keep assessing and make sure that, in terms of risk, that, I had kind of eyes on that as well as eyes on the opportunity, and I wasn't kind of getting in too far ahead of myself.
Right. So the day after the deal was done, what
Yep.
happens, Mike? You've got the money in the bank. You wealthy, very wealthy. What's the feeling?
I mean, not what you probably anticipate.
No,
And I've said before, people are never going to feel sorry for you. That's for
no.
sure. Because it's a very privileged position, and feel very fortunate and very humbled actually by the fact that you're in this fortunate position. But the feeling was definitely, if I kind of draw out the main feeling, it was one of loss.
Right.
Because this was a really important relationship to me. This was something that, to a certain extent, I'd let define me.
Right.
And that's probably part of the challenge, and something that I kind of learned as a consequence was, as we build our businesses, there is a tendency for us to be the business, and that's great early on, right? So it'd be PR or podcasts, or you become synonymous with your brand and with your business. That becomes really difficult when you're about to sell your business.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons, partly because you've got this emotional kind of really kind of intrinsic link, it's like umbilical cord of emotion to your brand, whatever it is. But also for the buyer, because from the buyer's perspective, are they buying you, or are they buying the business, or are they buying both? So then people start to get into conversations like restrictive covenants, earnouts, kind of long stops on involvement, and at that point you kind of think, well, can I do that? Can I work for somebody else running my business?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I've never been in a position where, where I've been, on the, I'm trying to think of an analogy. It's probably a really bad analogy, but let's say you separated from your partner got remarried, and you didn't move out of the house. I mean, it's kind of like, I can imagine it's in a way, it's a similar situation, because this is you. And so there is an emotional education around how you kind of not disassociate, but how you detune that emotional relationship with the thing that you've spent every waking hour, for me, for 15 years and longer, really.
Yeah, longer.
Developing, and look, when it comes down to a transaction, when it comes down to cash in the bank, when you've got the benefit of hindsight, and it's great fortune, and like I say, Matt, hugely humbled and extremely grateful, but it makes it really quite a cold outcome.
Yeah.
Because it's and look, and I think there's a making that that's part of the education, because subsequently, making decisions like that, it becomes much more transactional. But certainly for your first business, for your first brand, anybody who is so the reality is, people buy the value that you create by investing your whole being and your emotion, is what people are going to buy. So the irony is, the more involved you are, the more intrinsically linked you are, the more valuable the business is going to be, the more you're going to kind of feel like you've fallen to earth with a big bump, when you actually sell your business, because you're going to be like, well, what just happened there. I feel, you know, so
It's one of the things that I talk to the leaders that I work with about is like when you exit, what you're going to do. You need to plan what you, for all those reasons you've just talked about, is that this has been your life. This is what you identify with. You need to set something up afterwards so that you don't feel lost and at sea. So how long was it before you went to America and set up TireBuyer?
Yeah, so we set up Tirescanner for 3 years, 4 years later.
Right.
So 2019, so just before COVID, or just kind of during COVID. So yeah, we kind of, you know, it felt this time it was going to be much more straightforward. You know, like I said, all the learnings, got the playbook. I mean, you know, totally underestimated the size of the market, totally underestimated the difference in US to UK consumers and people generally and business. So kind of got started nonetheless, and got the business kind of the network, you know, built, got at least started to build the network, the supply relationships, and then COVID bit us quite hard over here. You know, because I mean, you remember, but there was, you know, President Trump was at that time, right up until the end, was saying this thing didn't exist, and then it was a state by state decision, and literally overnight, states just started to close down. So we were in a position. It was funny because we're not funny, but it was interesting because we were selling tires on the internet and installing tires at people's homes with mobile vans, which actually gave us a bump, ironically, because people didn't want to go into stores. So it was an interesting, unpredictable kind of benefit to the business model. So we carried on trading and we carried on building it, and we were back in the UK, and then we came back again. So we were kind of bouncing between places, and well, when we could, when we were allowed to fly. So we got out, just went on the last flight, and then we came back in when we were able to. But we're still running the business from the UK, and we had a team here and we're still hiring people. And off the back of that, when things started to kind of cool a little bit, and it cooled in terms of the restrictions sooner here than it did, certainly in some of the states here than it did in the UK. We got into a conversation with a supplier, one of our suppliers, ATD, who were looking to develop their e-commerce, and on the back of what was this interesting kind of phenomenon of getting tires installed at home, which we kind of felt was going to be something that was going to be here to stay now. People were used to that.
Yeah.
And we got into a merger discussion, and you know, and that was still, we're still in the back end of COVID. I'm still investing in the business, didn't have any investors. It was all on me. And again, it was the gut, you know, there was points in there where you kind of, that gut feel, you know, do we stick this out? Do we do this partnership? Do we try and see this one through on our own? But again, my feeling, because what I've experienced in the UK was the US is so big,
It's huge,
and state by state, it's so different.
Yeah.
Not just economically and culturally, but you know, from a meteorological perspective, you know, we've got snow up north and we've got, you know, 100-degree heat down south. It's like different markets, different supply chains. So it felt like if we could strike a deal with a partner who could give us distribution coverage, access to brands, and a bit more of that on the ground kind of infrastructure, operational muscle, then we could definitely scale this a lot quicker. So we managed to get that deal done, but that was 12 months of back and forth, on and off, and just hard work between the parties to bring it together, but we got it done. So we merged Tirescanner and TireBuyer, and then we had the kind of third largest online tire retailer, I think, in the world off the back of that merger. And then we started to really push forward. So we grew the network. We've grown the network to 18,000 locations. We've got 120 distribution centres across the country, and now we've started to deliver. We use the technology that we merged to deliver B2B solutions for other people who want to move into the tyre market or who are already in it, and they want to use our tools. So things like
Right.
nobody's got 18,000 installation points in a scheduling system for booking tyres for consumers. So and a call center to sit behind it. So we've carved that out. We've called it Treadsy, and we now sell that back into fleet providers, to
Right.
other e-commerce partners, and the
That
cost of
makes
freight.
sense.
Well, the cost of freight's gone from like $9 to $30 since the Ukraine war started. So it means that we can get, tires onto vans into stores for a fraction of that, which, so the timing's been good. But the work to bring all that together has been, 25 years in the making, really, to this point. So, we, again, right place at the right time, but we I tend to think if you hang around the same place long enough, it becomes the right place in the end. So, it's never really a moment of chance. I don't think I've ever had a situation where I've just rocked up and gone, "Oh, that was lucky." I don't think it's ever happened.
Takes a lot of hard work to be in the right place at the right time, without a shadow of a doubt. Where are you taking it? What's the plan?
So we're going to keep, we're keeping growing it. I think this pivot, this Treadsy model, is the way forward. We've just launched. There's a business here, Rent a Centre, which is a kind of rent to own retailer, the biggest in the country, 2,000 stores, and they wanted to be in tyres, so we built them a tyre category. So it's Rent a Centre Tyres powered by Treadsy. So they will promote that to millions of their customers, and we are the engine room behind it, using the 18,000 network. But it looks and feels like it's Rent a Centre, but we do all the plumbing and manage the whole thing for them. We've got another big retailer that we're going to be launching in January, and then a few more in the pipe for after that. So, this kind of pivot to us being a solutions provider to other operators in the market is, in my mind, this has kind of been bubbling again for years. We did it for Tesco's as Blackcircles in like 2012. So we created Tesco tires and powered by Blackcircles. So it's a kind of an iteration on that. But I feel like this has got 10 years in it now. The online tire retailer combination that we created, the value, really intrinsic value, is in all of the operating elements of it. And I see a time where retail, there's this convergence, in multi-channel where you've got the big brands will eventually master online in all industries. So unless Amazon get there first, so to be an outlier with 20 odd years expertise, but not necessarily have a database of 100 million customers, but know the market, you will eventually have your dinner eaten for you by these, unless you become the facilitator for them to get to market, in my view. So that's the strategy we're pursuing. Yeah, that's the strategy we're pursuing. And I think, who knows what happens between now and whenever, but we're enjoying it. That's the main thing. We're enjoying it. The team are having it's hard work, but we're winning. We're doing new things. We're innovating. So that's taken us a couple of years to get to this position. But it feels like the start of Blackcircles really all over again.
That's nice. It's exciting. If it had a personality or a character, how would you describe the business?
Mickey Mouse. No, I'm kidding. No, I think if it had a character, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Oh, I don't know. I think it would be. I don't know. What I think. I would in terms of the business. So as an entity, as a kind of as a moving, living, breathing kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. We're a serious business, but we are that wants to win, that needs to win, that wants to win, but not at any cost. We are it's fun, but it's not frivolous,
Yeah.
and it's serious because it wants to win and celebrate that success. That's kind of how I would, it's not there's a lot. I mean, I kind of talked recently about how you try and get that balance, between what you do at work and how serious that you make that, and what you do at home and how serious, you don't make that as a consequence of what you do at work becomes all consuming. And I feel like we understand where the line is. So it's not win at any cost.
Right.
So we do it because we want to and because we can, and we really believe we can win. But there's always a line. I think, I'll be honest, at Blackcircles, I think the line was just kept moving.
Right.
And it was at a cost, and we all achieved a lot. But would we do it the same way again? I don't think we would.
Right. You're a bit knackered at the end of Blackcircles, were you?
I just think we missed an opportunity to have more of a good time. I think we took it quite seriously, and that probably comes from me. And that's learning. That's the benefit of learning. And thankfully, a lot of the guys who worked with me at Blackcircles are with me today, building out TireBuyer and Tredsy. So can't be that bad.
No, you must be all right, really. That's brilliant, Mike. I've really enjoyed that. I could talk to you for a lot longer, but it's dark here now. I've got to walk the dogs, and you've got a full day of work ahead of you. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the luck in the world.
Pleasure. Thanks for your help. Thank you.
Hi, I'm looking forward to issuing the podcast with Rick Mason, who's the MD and founder of Agent Fox Media. He's had a fascinating life in design initially and now in publishing. And it's multimedia publishing, so it's not just books. He also is an agent to bands and comedians. It's a fascinating world of how he's developed his business and how busy he is now. So listen to Rick Mason, Agent Fox Media, on our next podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. Did you know at TriCrest we've built a kick-ass culture coach and consultant program? So if you're a business coach or consultant and you're looking for something new, add to your toolbox, or even escape the 9-to-5, join us at our next event. Links in the information on the podcast. See you there.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass.